Hello everybody. In this video, you will be learning about method parameters. So in my last video, I taught you guys about methods. In this video, you are going to learn about method parameters. So the agenda of my video will be types of parameters, understanding about different types of parameters, and ordering of parameters in a method. So let's get straight into it. So first I'm going to talk about the types of parameters. So the types of parameters are named parameters, dynamic parameters, default or optional parameters, value parameters, ref or reference parameters, out parameters, and params parameters. So first I'm going to explain about named parameters. So in a named parameter, what is a named parameter? So in a named parameter, you can specify the value of the parameter by the parameter name itself. So for example, you have a method with 5 or more parameters. If you just pass their values directly by using value parameters in the argument, then your code will look confusing and it'll be not readable. So instead of doing that, you can use named parameters and specify the parameter name, colon, and the value of that parameter. I'll show you that in the Visual Studio demo. So a named parameter always should appear after fixed value arguments. If you try to provide fixed value arguments after named parameters, then the compiler will throw an error. Now I'm going to show you these concepts in action in Visual Studio. So here I've fired up Visual Studio and I've created a solution inside which I have two projects. One is a class library and the other is a console application. So we're going to create an app that'll print a few details about a student on the console. So this is my class library and inside this I'm going to create a method. So public void and the method name. I'll call this print, so bracket, and the parameters. So here, string first name, comma, string last name, integer roll number, again, and this will be byte, this one, and this will be for storing the standard of the student. So byte standard and character for division. Okay, now I'm going to open up a curly bracket in here. And inside this, I'm going to type in console.writeLine method. So here I'm going to type in, open close quotation marks. So student name. So we have a spelling error. Colon placeholders for the parameters or variables. So 1, 0. After the quotation mark, a comma, and this is what you have to display in this placeholder for our variable. So I want you to display the first name of the student, and in the second placeholder I want to display the last name of the student. So that will form the full name of the student. Okay, so now for displaying the student roll number, division, and standard, we'll need to create a whole new console or write line method. So instead of doing that, we can just create, or we can just add in here a slash n. So that stands for new line. So in here, I'm going to type in roll number, colon, placeholder 2, and then after this, again, slash n. And then in here, I'm going to type in class, colon, 2 placeholders again. So this is 3 space, and here it's 4. Okay, so now after this last name, I'm gonna put a comma, and then this will be what to display in here. So this will hold the roll number, comma, and this will hold the standard. So standard, not okay. Yes, standard, and this 4 will hold the division. So division. Okay. So now we are going to create an object of this class here. So in order to create an object first, add a reference. Oh no. Yeah, add reference, project reference, okay. And then the namespace. So using the namespace name is student info, semicolon. Now we can create an object here. So var, and I'll name the student obj equal to new class name, that is student, bracket, semicolon. Now we're going to call the method. So just copy this, object name dot print, that is a method name. I'll open a bracket, and this asks me to pass the arguments. So first name, okay, comma, last name, Zilla, comma, roll number 21, comma, byte standard, okay, so 5, and then character division. So for this you have to just put a single quotation mark. If you put double, what you do for a string, then you'll get an error. Okay, so D, and then a semicolon. So now it's time for us to run our program. So Control plus F5. Okay, the student name, Abdullah, roll number 21, class 5D. Okay, that looks good. Now, as you can see, this looks like a bit confusing. So now we can do this with using a named parameter. So what we are doing here is we are passing the arguments using a value parameter. So if any other developer comes and checks your program, he or she will get confused about what is 21, what is 5, what is D. So to avoid that confusion, we can use a named parameter and specify the parameter name. So to do that, this is the first name. So first name, colon, the value. So you cannot put the named parameter at the first before the fixed value arguments. You can put it in the last, or all of them have to be named value arguments, not value arguments, named parameters. So this can even be in a different order. So I can just cut this division, and then in here I can just paste it and then specify that. So division, colon, D, okay, and then in here comma, and I don't want this comma anymore. And then there's the last name, colon Zilla, okay. And this 21 is roll number, colon. And this 5 is standard, okay, colon. So now we can run our program. So Control plus F5. So you can see that the results are all the same. So I can just close this. And now I'll make this, the first name, a value parameter. And you can see that there's no error. Okay, now if it's the other way around, like these are all value parameters and this first one is a name parameter, then the compiler will throw an error. That's what I said in the presentation. So now again, I'll run my program. Oh, yeah. And again, the results are the same. So now I hope that you're very clear about named parameters. Now we'll move on to the next type of parameter. So the next type of parameter is going to be a dynamic parameter. So what is a dynamic parameter? So when we pass parameters dynamically, the compiler does not check the type of the dynamic type variable at the compile time. But instead of this, it checks, gets the type of the variable at the runtime. I'll show you this in the Visual Studio demo. So the dynamic type variable is basically created using the dynamic keyword. And we use it at times when we don't know what type our variable is. So now I'm going to again get into our Visual Studio demo. Okay, so this is the project we created using a named parameter. So this time we're just going to display the student roll number on the console. So to do that, we only need the roll number parameter. I can just remove this and this. And then instead of int roll number, I'm going to change this to dynamic. So now I'm going to remove this line of code. Okay. And again, type that console or write line, roll number, colon placeholder for the variable 0. Okay. Come after the quotation mark, and I want to display the roll number in there. Okay, so now I'll go to my console application. So here we only need one argument to be passed, that is the roll number. I can delete this and this. So you can see that we're using a named parameter, and if we run our program, you can see that roll number is 21. So the dynamic parameter even works with a named parameter. So now, even if we give a value argument, again the result is the same. So what you can see here is that our roll number is an integer. We have passed an integer value. So once you assign a value to a dynamic parameter, you cannot change it. Not a value, a type. So I'll just show you that. So here I'll create a variable. So for example, string. Just for your understanding, underscore number, underscore roll number itself equal to the roll number that we have in here. Semicolon. So now you see that we don't get any error. So when you run your program, you can see that it's an unhandled exception. So it says that it cannot implicitly convert type integer to string. So as I said, you will get um, the compiler does not check the type of the dynamic parameter in the compile time, but in the runtime. Now let's discuss about the next parameter type. So I'll go back to my presentation. So next we are going to discuss about default or optional parameter. As the name itself suggests, optional parameters are not compulsory, they are just optional. So what it does is it helps to exclude arguments for some parameters, or we can say that in optional parameters, it's not necessary to pass all the parameters in a method. So each and every optional parameter contains a default value, which is part of its definition. So if we do not pass any arguments to the optional parameter, then it takes its default value. The optional parameters are always defined at the end of the parameter list, just like named parameters, or in other words, the last parameter of the method, constructor, etc. is the optional parameter. Now we'll see these concepts in action in Visual Studio. So here I'm in Visual Studio, and first I'm going to remove this field that we declared while doing the demo for dynamic parameters, and then I'm going to put in one more parameter for the method, and this will be called, this is a byte, so byte and standard equal to 5. Okay, and 5 is the default value I've provided for this parameter. So here I'm going to remove this. So 21, I've only passed one parameter. So that is the first parameter, that is for our roll number. I'm not really passing the value for our standard. So now I'm going to put in again a console or write line for printing our standard. So /n, and then in here I'm going to type in standard colon placeholder 1, and then after the roll number I'll put in a comma, and then I'll display the standard. Okay, so yeah, like I was saying, if you don't pass any value here, the default or optional parameter takes up its default value, that's 5 at the moment. So this our optional or default parameter will even work with dynamic parameter. Now I'm going to just just run our program. So Control F5. So it tells me that the build has failed. So here there's an error. Oh, it's not stats, standard. So we'll paste that here. So now again, I'll try to run my program. Okay, the build has succeeded. So roll number 21 and standard 5. Okay, so now I'm going to change the order of these parameters. So I can just cut this, comma, I can remove this. So as you can see that we have an error here. So it says that optional parameter must appear after all the required parameters. So I'll just move that back there. Okay. Now this is the default value for our default or optional parameter. If I change that from here in the argument, comma, let's see, 4, and let's see what value this will take. So let's run our program. So you can see that it takes the value of 4. So this proves that if we have not assigned any value, then the optional parameter will just take the default value. If we have assigned a value, then it will consider that as the value to display here in our example. So that's all for the optional parameter. So now we are going to move on to our next parameter, that will be value parameter, which you'll already be familiar with. So now we can say that value parameters are kind of like the default parameters we use. And when we pass values to value parameters, then it contains its data directly, not the reference. And I don't think that this will require much of a Visual Studio demo because you'll already be familiar with value parameters. But still, I'll show you a demo on this too. So I've fired up Visual Studio, and first I will remove this optional default or optional parameter. Oh, wait, did I just cut off the bracket? Yeah, now this. And I'm going to change this from dynamic to integer. And I don't need this new line too. So I'll remove that. And the standard. Okay. And now I will, oh, I'm sorry. We have a comma in here, so I can just remove that. Okay. So here it's just a value directly, so that's how we use a value parameter. So now we can just run our program. Okay, the results is roll number 21. That's good. So I think this is more than enough information about value parameters, and I will cover up the other 3 parameters that are reference parameters, out parameters, and params parameters in my next video. So that's it for this video, guys. If you like this video, don't forget to like and share this video. Please subscribe to my channel for more. Goodbye till the next video.